There's an important thing, I think, to document. Number one, everything's made of something. You either have to mine it or you have to grow it.
That's right.
Everything comes from the earth.
Oi, mateys, you best be interviewing the old-timers before it's too late. They've got a lot of great stories to tell.
So we're in the home of Bob Steele, and we got Jesse Boyd and his boy, Malcolm. Okay, so Bob, tell me about
Okay,
what got you started.
I guess I'm a crazy old prospector, and I started as younger than this young man, going with my father prospecting. And he and his brothers were miners. They mined manganese, they mined gold, silver, lead up to Eureka. And then they done a lot of prospecting, and that's how I got started. So I done a lot of went with them. Dad went with him all my life, and he done a lot of mining, and he done a lot of work for other people on mining claims, and he took all us boys. I have three brothers. There was Jerry, Keith, and Danny, and myself, and we all worked with Dad in the mines. And during his prospecting days, he done a lot of assessment work for other people, private people, done their work on their mining claims. Each year you have to do $100 worth of work on a mining claim, and so he was he'd go do that for people that had money, and we was involved in it. So anyway, that's how I got started. And when I was 17 years old, I made quite a bit of money in the uranium business. Dad had a Geiger counter, and we went down southern Utah. A friend of his told him where there was some uranium down there, so we went down and found it and staked it. And a cousin of mine, Sam Steele, him and I went back down and staked, I think 17 claims we staked. And we ended up forming Circle Cliff Mining Corporation, and we made quite a lot of money out of that. So
did you guys mine it, or you just sold the rights?
I actually worked in the mines for 3 years down there, and mined it and shipped it. So I made quite a bit of money when I was a young man, and so I had that, and I always believed I was going to get rich. So anyway, I got married, and I had to work for a living, and I worked down to NRP for quite a number of years. But during that time, I still prospected and still went out all the time and worked mining claims. And so during the years why I had the opportunity to work for a lot of different mining companies, I worked 8 years for Interstate Brick, looking for clay for the brick company. I worked for Freeport McMoran Gold Corporation, prospected for them for a couple of years.
Out of Arizona?
Yes. I prospected for, Kennecott Exploration. I spent a year and a half with them. I spent a few months at different times with several mining corporations. Centennial Development Company for, I can't recall all the different companies, but I've worked for several of them. prospected for them, found different mineral deposits for them over the years. So I've had a really great life, been able to go out and do a lot of things, and I still today love to go out prospecting. That's my entertainment.
How do you do that? You know the geology, and so you're just going out looking for different types of geology, and then you kind of crush it, sample it, and all that? Or how do you go about doing that?
In the 60s, we found a bunch of uranium over in Birch Creek here, just 3 miles north of us here in town. And we leased them to Cyril DePasco Mining Corporation. And they hired me to work for them. And so I spent a couple of years working for them on the properties. And the geologist, who was Forrest Fincher, who turned out to be a really great friend of mine, he bought me some books and gave them to me. And I studied them. One of them was, I can't even remember the names of them. But anyway, I studied them and studied them and studied them, just like they was the Bible. And so I got to know how mineral deposits was formed, and because of that, them studies and the book work that I done, I learned to be what I consider a geological consultant. I wasn't a geologist. I never have a degree, but I'm a
You had all the
geological consultant, and I worked with dozens of geologists over the years, and I brainwashed each one of them. I tried to suck everything out of them that I could, and so because of it, I learned a heck of a lot of geology, and then on top of that, prospecting is a considerable amount different than actually geology, and you have to understand rocks and the things that made the minerals in them, and anyway, you become pretty good at what you're doing if you really work hard at it. Anything that you work hard at in this life, you turn out to be quite what's the words anyway, you become good at it. Yeah, you become good at it.
Get the education, it's another thing to be out in the field and actually getting that knowledge.
Yeah, I've spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours out in the field, and we found out a partner of mine who was Terry Steele. He worked with me for several years as a prospector and working with these companies, and he was a very good prospector too. And he had learned just like I have. We'd went out and really learned together. And so we become very good at being prospectors, and we had numerous companies offer us jobs to work for them, just prospecting for minerals. On the contracts that we had with the companies, we would everything that we found for them, they had first choice at it. Mm-hmm. If they didn't want it, it reverted right back to us. And so because of it, we ended up with numerous properties. And with these properties, we turned around and leased them to other companies. So we had the best of both worlds. We was able to accumulate our own mineral deposits, and if they found what they wanted, why they went ahead and kept them. And you know, I worked for Interstate Brick, and I found numerous clay deposits for them, and they kept several of them, and today they're still mining them. I got in a friendship with Thomas J. Peck and Sons Corporation from out of Lehigh. Tony Peck was a partner of mine, and we mined numerous different mineral deposits that we found for him. And he worked for Interstate Brick, mined all their clay. So I was actually, I overseen all the mining operations from Interstate Brick. And anyway, it was pretty interesting life that I've had. Really, it's been really good, and I still today have mining properties that's leased to mining companies, and that's still how I make my living. Is I have one property out to the Levan, which is a gypsum property that is leased to Sunrock Mining Corporation, Sunrock, and anyway, it'll last over 100 years, the deposit. So
wow. So I'm just thinking, you know, for somebody wanting to get in that today, you know, this has been going on, prospectors, tramping the mountains and searching for 100 years. You know, there's still things out there to be found. Is there, or has it all been picked over? Is there, you know?
There are more minerals in the ground today than has ever been taken out.
So there's still a lot out there.
So people just have to be a lot sharper today than they did before, because what had happened was nearly all the mineral deposits that's been found up to the last few years was found right on the surface. There's probably the surface ground mass that's exposed is probably 1/10% of what's under the ground.
And I guess over time with the erosion and that, some of it becomes exposed.
Yes, and that's what happened. Faulting uplifted mountains and eroded it, and the ore bodies was found. The ones that's still buried is most of the mineral deposits are still buried today. A lot of people don't understand or know that. It was kind of like the oil deposits. Everybody figured we was running out of oil and not going to have any oil. Well, with the new methods that they found today, there's more oil in the United States than there ever was. In fact, there's more oil been found in the United States at the present time than there is anywhere else in the world. So the new methods they'll come up with, and there's geophysics, of all different kinds that they do. They do a lot of magnetic work. They do a lot of EP, IP, and SP geophysical work. They do geochemical work where they go in and find where minerals has been deposited in just parts per million or parts per billion, mm-hmm. and then they use that to follow up onto where they find big mineral deposits, and that's one of the things that they're doing today. In Nevada, there have been more gold mines found in the last 20 or 30 years than they ever knew ever existed in the United States. Mm. So we're now a real big gold producing nation, and so it's there's going to be lots of big mines found in the future. So prospecting is still out there. A lot of areas that we found minerals in that nobody even believed mineral existed.
Really?
Yep. Didn't even, they'd they've done a lot of work with through the USGS, United States Geological Survey, and the Bureau of Mines had done lots and lots of geochemical and geophysical work around the nation, and we found mineral deposits in places that nobody even figured had an opportunity to exist.
Huh.
So, and they're still out there, a lot of them. We've traveled over many of the mountains, but one man walking down through the country is kind of like drilling a hole out in the desert and hoping you're going to hit ore, you know.
Yeah.
So it's really, there's really a lot to be done. And
So your advice to somebody who wanted to get started in this, first learn tell me what your advice would be.
well, the first you got to get books, and there's many books out now. Lots more books
on geology,
on geology, on geophysics, on all these ways of finding the mineral deposits. There's plenty of information. You can just take your phone and get so much information right off your phone today.
Yeah.
So much more than I had. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so they've got all the information compiled that's happened throughout the whole world, and so it's so much easier today to get information than when I was out there. I had to go get pamphlets and books and things from the Utah Geological Survey and the U.S. Geological Survey and all them things. Now that's all available to you just right on your phone. So there's...
So learn that stuff, and then it's just a matter of getting off the beaten path, getting out of your vehicle and walking.
Sure.
And look for the stuff that
Yep,
just don't look natural, or just look for the different formations.
And yes, and you have to get off your vehicles. You got to get out. We had a geologist that I worked for Freeport, and he'd always say, "Oh, you can't prospect out of the truck, but you can. You can see the different changes in the formation as you go along, and you can find stuff even still out of your truck, but you still got to get out and get right on the ground, and you got to get down and dirty. Some places where we'd find a little mineral show, we would spend days looking to find exactly where it come from and what took place.
So you do a lot of digging, you do a lot of sampling,
we have a lot of sampling. I have probably run 10,000 rock samples, chip samples in my life, 10,000. Besides all the sampling that was done by the companies that's gone in, so they sample hundreds of samples.
So did you learn how to do that sampling yourself, or did you take it into?
We took it into chemists that really knew what they was doing.
Yeah.
Really a legitimate chemist. And of course you can see copper. Copper's pretty visible. Lead, when you bust into lead, you can see the lead. You can see all kinds of different minerals that you can actually see when you bust into it with a hammer. A lot of people have little prospecting picks, and it's kind of laughable when you see a geologist with a prospecting pick, because what we did was use double jacks, and we busted rock. We got into the rock so we could see it. Rather, they just bust the surface off and play around. We used double jacks.
So that's a trick, man. Bust up the rock really, really good.
Yes, and you get in, and then you can really see what's happening. The first inch or two of rock that's on the surface has been so decomposed and so altered and changed by Mother Nature that it's just almost impossible with a little rock hammer to tell much about it. So we packed sledgehammers everywhere we went. Probably 6 to 8 pound sledgehammers are the best. I have used 10 and 16 pound sledgehammers in a lot of. That's what I used to pack years ago. But there's much more mineral now, and they can get with the new methods and open pit methods and stuff, they can recover way more mineral than they used to recover when back in the olden days. So they can get, in a lot of places, nearly 100% recover. And so
That's crazy.
there's a lot of things that can be done now. And so somebody who really wants to get in and learn, I think there's great opportunities out there for them today. We talk about metal detectors. They've got really good, sophisticated metal detectors today that they can use and do all the geophysical work that you can just do it by hand now, where they had to have great big generators and put poles out, electric wires for miles through the country, which was still good, but now they've got little machines that they can work way more efficient and better, and they can find great anomalies underground today. So there's a lot of sophistication. They went way beyond my going around with the double jack and busting rock, but that's still important.
Yep, it is. Okay, so now I want to hear some great stories that you've heard, or things that have been found, or stories of things that people were looking for, or just some great treasure stories, or anything like that you got.
Much ground as you've covered, maybe have you seen anything interesting that you don't see very often? Or
I see so many things that it's hard to really come up with any one thing, but I'll start off with the uranium out to Gardner's Canyon, or out in Birch Creek. My father was a great prospector, and the first thing that he really made much money on was a deposit of silica, just plain silica, that he found out west of Jericho. And he took that silica and promoted it to what is the name of the company? Anyway, they made silica block for Geneva Steel, and he sold that to I can't remember. I've got it. It's written down in this deal right here. But a company that made the block, or the brick for the, and that was the first thing he ever done that I ever remember that made a lot of money. And he bought a brand new 1942 Ford pickup. It was the first new car that our family ever owned. And it was, we had a lot of celebrating that when he sold that deposit of silica. And so that kind of it was a lot of fun to be around and see what happened. And
you wouldn't think that something like silica or something like that would bring a lot of most people are just looking for the gold.
Yeah,
silver,
that's true.
Think about clay, like you saying, you're looking for clay, and you would think about that.
But he came back here to Nephi, and we lived here, and we still done a lot of prospecting and that, and anyway, he was looking at some more silica that was up there for silica to make glass out of, a glass silica out in Birch Creek. Well, while he was out there looking for the silica and getting the samples, he picked up a piece of float uranium, and it was uranium. Yes, it's yellow. It was a real yellow, pretty rock, and he brought it back, and he said, "Look at this, Bob." I said, "I don't know where it come from, but look at it." So, and I said, "It's definitely uranium." So we had a little Geiger counter, and I went and bought some new batteries and put in the Geiger counter, and we went back to out and I started looking, and I found where the float come from, and I found it in place. So then I got a hold of my cousin Terry, who had a scintillator, and we come back, and after it geologized it and figured where it had come from, and it was a big block that had been folded down, and I mean big block, you know, several million tons, and had been folded down, and so we then took the scintillator and went back up on the hill where this had folded down off of, and then we found it in place, a big area up there, and so we leased it to Cerro Mining Corporation, and that's where them roads and stuff are up there, and we did mine about 150 ton and shipped it to the mills in Moab, and we made some pretty good money out of it, but it cost to build the roads and to get everything up there. It cost us more money than we'd actually made out of it. And then the price went down on uranium, and so we was unable to make a go of it, so we just shut it down. Well, then the wilderness, the Forest Service made a wilderness out of it, and they said that our claims was invalid because they just wouldn't make you couldn't make money out of it, so they actually stole them, is what they took them away from us.
Yeah.
And so, but that was kind of one little story that took place. Another one, my father was out doing some assessment work on some mining claims on Desert Mountain. And here came an old boy riding along with a wagon, he was heading for Desert Spring. Dad, he seen us and he come over by us, and so Dad fed the old boy and gave him some food that we had, and sat there and talked to him. And while he's talking to him, he said, "What you doing?" And he said, "Well," he said, "I'm going out to work on some mining claims out by Desert Spring." He said, "Well, have you got some good stuff?" He said, "Well," he said, "a year or two ago," he said, "I was out prospecting, and he said, I found some really high-grade gold ore." And he said, "But I don't know where it come from." He said, "It was this float." And he said, so I went in and done some sampling, and he found some low-grade gold ore, but he couldn't never find where the high-grade come from. But he says, "I'm working on this mine, trying to find this high-grade gold." And he said, "I hope that it came from where I'm a-digging." So anyway, he told Dad that story. And that was pretty much the last we ever heard of that. So when Terry and I was working for these mining companies, why, Dad had told us the story, and so we went out there and started looking around, and I found some really high-grade gold ore. I found some samples there, and so we looked at it, and it looked really good, and it was float. But and so we talked it over, and I said, "Let's run it and just find out what it runs. If it really is ore, you know." Well, come back, it was over a half an ounce of gold per ton.
Wow.
And so we was pretty excited about it. So we went out and we hunted, and we hunted, and we hunted 2 or 3 different times. We went out and hunted. One day when I was out there hunting, I'd been all over up above there, and I came back and got me a sandwich and sat there waiting for Terry and Sam to come back. And I just sitting there thinking, I thought, you know, it's possible that gold was right where I found it, you know. It's possible, because it was just down on some low hills, and it was all eroded there. So I got my pick and my shovel, and I wrote a note to Terry and them and put it on. It was on the lath. I just wrote it and set it on the back of the deal. Said, I've gone to dig or find that gold mine and get it, you know. So I went over right where it was at and started digging where I'd got that sample on the surface, and I dug maybe 3 or 4 inches underneath the ground, and there was the vein
Really?
of ore right there in place. Yep, and so we took and promoted it to a couple of different companies. First, Freeport, we promoted it to them, and they came in and done quite a bit of work on it, and they dug it and done some sampling on it, and it was high-grade gold, and it was in place. But they drilled 2 or 3 short holes, and they turned and walked from it, decided that it was just kind of a fluke.
Huh.
And so then I promoted it to another company, and they came in and they done quite a bit, but they took and dug on it with a backhoe and dug quite deep, and they got a truckload of ore and hauled it off. And what they ever done with it, I don't know, but they did that. But then finally, they dropped the property. So it's reverted back to us, and ever since then we've kept it. But what we do is we call it Pebble dike gold. Okay? Oh, there's a picture of it right there. See that round pebble?
Uh-huh.
That's gold ore. That's about 1.5 feet in diameter, that rock. It's still sitting out there. I tried to get it last year and I couldn't lift it.
Wow, I would never think there was gold in that. Huh.
And all these pebbles here are the same. Well, a pebble dike has been shot up by dynamic forces. And this is what it kind of looks like. This is what the deal is, and it has been shot up for hundreds of feet through the solid material underneath.
It just finds a porous spot, right?
Yep, and a little fault or some kind of a deal, and it's been shot up, and it made them go round.
Huh.
They go round like that.
So someplace way down there's a bunch of it.
Someplace there's ore.
So it's
And
like
what
a
happens?
is what you're saying?
Okay, what happens is you have what they call a boiling water table. Okay, with hydrothermal waters, and they're coming up, and the cold waters from the surface water comes down, and when they meet, they don't like each other. And they create a boiling water table. And when that happens, that steam builds up and just blows up and shoots clear to the surface. And lets it all off the pressure that is built. Well, the ore, where this boiling water table was, there was a bunch of ore. And then when that explosion took place, it shot that ore clear to the surface. And so down there somewhere today, there's a high-grade ore body.
You have no idea how deep the Freeport McMahon probably never drilled deep enough.
Nobody drilled deep. Everybody was drilling shallow holes back in them days. They wanted an open pit.
Yeah.
A high-grade deposit or an open pit big deposit. It didn't matter whether it was high-grade. They wanted a great big deposit of ore, and they wanted it basically on the surface or within probably 300 feet.
Yeah.
Where they could open pit it. So the ore has never been, it's never been tested. It's there still today, and it's a very valuable property.
Cool.
And that's kind of like the Ibex mine, right?
Yes, very, very similar.
They had an old ore body and a new ore body.
Yes, I have the geology of the Ibex mine, and these had explosions in the Ibex mine. In fact, over the Tinnick, in the Tinnick district, lots of pebble dikes shot clear to the surface. Not too many of them, or any of them that I know of, had ore when they got to the surface. This has ore.
So that means it's probably fairly good.
Yeah.
Then, huh? Wow.
Them, the ones that is over the Eureka, they can assay them, and they can assay the rock next to them, and then assay the pebble dikes, and they get anomalous mineralization in the pebble dikes, so they know that there was mineral at depth. And so over there, they have drilled down. Now a lot of that's been eroded over there, but they've drilled down 1,200 or 1,500 or 1,600 feet, and then they've found the ore bodies. And the pebble dikes where the ore bodies are have turned to ore. So out to Drum Mountain, the same thing has happened out to Drum Mountain. That's the Ibex he's talking about. And the open pitted ore out there. There was Jumbo Mining Corporation, and then there was Western Mining Corporation, and then I'm not sure there was another one, but anyway, they went out and mined several million ton of ore, and heap leached it out there to Drum Mountain. The mines where they mined it, you go down in and you can find the pebble dikes right in the ore, and they are ore in the where the ore was made down there. So, and the Ibex has it. All the other mines, the major mines around in Drum, every one of them have pebble dikes in them.
Really?
So pebble dikes is very important, and there's literature all on the pebble dikes around the country, but it's fairly new. There's a lot. There was probably a lot of pebble dikes that the old timers didn't know was pebble dikes. They just went in and mined the mines and didn't realize that they were pebble dikes. So it's a kind of a relatively, it ain't a new thing, but it's a heck of a guide to ore.
Yeah.
It's like a drill hole, only it's shot to the surface for you.
Yeah.
That's
Cool.
crazy.
So, I know you probably had to hear stories of the Lost Roads mines up in the Uintas. Did you ever do any searching, or what are your theories and thoughts on them?
I've looked at I read them, that literature. Some Dreams Never Die, and some of them things. I've read them. I have books, pamphlets of them here at home even. And yes, I have went out and researched some of the different things. Pothole Gold out by Tule Valley. We spent quite a bit of time there and went to the exact localities that they said you could see the Deep Creek Mountains. You can see the mountains to the east of the volcanic peaks and all these kind of things. And we went into them areas, and I still don't discount them, because we found evidence of ancient rivers, big ancient rivers. Some of them 300 feet wide and probably 100 feet deep down where they've cut down into the formations. And then they've been filled back over with volcanics and then alluvium fill. And so it's very, very, very possible that some of that actually took place. And so we done quite a bit of research, but we don't really pan gold. We've panned it. We know how to pan it. We have panned it, and I do even have a little teeny bit of gold that I've panned. But we look for rock in place. The mother lode's what we've been hunting for all our lives. So, but we do some of that for fun and enjoyment, and it is fun to do it.
Yeah.
But I've never proven anything as of yet.
So all your exploring and looking around, if you came into things that didn't quite look right or natural or fit what the archaeologists say the history is, you know, like any giants or any old buildings or structures or anything that could have been made way before, you know, the Spaniards, or, you know, anything like that?
I've never ever really experienced that.
Okay.
No, never found anything that was actually. I mean, I found lots of Indian ruins and lots of stuff like that, but I've never ever found anything that I could say was a Spaniards had been there. Anything like that. I've never ever been able to prove any of that.
Okay. The Chicken Creek area above where he lives there, they say that, you know, there was a group of Spaniards that was massacred there by the Indians, and then they found some old secret gold maps there and that. But it just doesn't make sense why the Spaniards would be up there. That wasn't the route out of here. They was up there looking for something. Have you done any exploring or found anything or heard anything in that area? Or?
I've worked Lavana quite a bit. I've never found any gold out Lavana. There's a lot of copper and lead. You can find copper and lead in numerous places
I heard
around
there's some
that
copper
area.
mines up there.
Yeah, you can find copper and lead in numerous places. We've even found uranium up Deep Creek.
You was telling me that story about what was it your dad told you about it?
Oh yeah, they said that there was a little stream of water come out by what they call Horse Heaven, just west of the campgrounds in Chicken Creek, and the old timers had left their picks and their shovels in a stream. Down the stream, the picks to kind of or so they'd tighten them up, put water in them and that. When they come back the next morning to go to work on wherever they was working, they had turned copper color all over on the outside. And and that happens to metal. If there's sulfuric acid waters with copper in them, the copper will immediately come out of the water and into the iron and replace the iron. It's really funny. We did that out by the Painter Spring in a spring where there was water. We put our hammers in and went and ate dinner, and when we came back out, why the hammers had all corroded. Now it wasn't necessarily copper, but it was some kind of corrosion. So anyway, that happens. I've done quite a bit of messing around with copper just this last summer, and I've got a bunch of copper just out west here. Copper King claims just 50 miles west of us, and I took metal and turned it into copper. So it's kind of interesting to do.
Yeah.
Just took sulfuric acid and water, mixed it together, and then put the copper in the bucket, and then put a piece of metal in. It'll turn to copper real quick.
Wow.
So
That's interesting.
so I've most of my I mean, I've seen some fantastic things in my day.
Yeah, I bet you have.
I've seen. I do even have a few pictures I've taken, but I've seen some fantastic things and found minerals in numerous places, and it's been a great life. But I've really not got any big mines going at the present time.
Yeah.
We had one out west going, a good one going a few years ago, and the guy went broke from a foolish operation of the mine, but or it would have been going still today. But we was very fortunate that he did, because we had a poor contract, real poor contract. We have a company that's got it now, and we have a reasonable contract now, and so hopefully in the next few years it'll be back in operation again.
Cool.
And one thing I thought was interesting that you told me about is you got these mountains on the Wasatch Front versus going out west. These geologically, these are a lot newer.
Yes, there's the Wasatch Fault across here. From the Wasatch Fault east is the basin, or is the Colorado Plateau. From here at the Wasatch Fault to the west is Basin and Range, and the Basin and Range has produced billions of dollars, trillions of dollars of mineralization in base metals, base and precious metals. To the east is uranium, vanadium, and coal, and things of that type is what they've produced.
And is that because of,
They're newer formations. They're all newer formations. The old formations, the deep sea, all mineral was made deep-seated. Nearly all mineral was made deep-seated. And so miles and miles under the ground. And so these others are way newer formations to the east of us.
Isn't there a name for the mineral belt out here?
There's the Tinnick Deep Creek Mineral Belt. There are two or three of them. There are three mineral belts, I think, in Utah. One of them is the Tinnick Deep Creek Mineral Belt. It runs clear up to Park City. It runs from Park City clear down through across and clear out to into Nevada. The other one is the Bluebell District, which runs from probably Marysvale to into Nevada to Pioche, and then there's the Iron Springs mining district that has down by Iron County, where the Iron Mountain is, and it runs from Iron Mountain out across and out into Nevada. So they're mineral belts. What they are is great weaknesses in the Earth's crust, and underneath them was lots of lava, and the heat, lots and lots of heat. And there's been hundreds of volcanoes along them weaknesses, and after the volcanoes die off, and after the intrusive rock, the granites and the stuff is cooled off, why, that's where the minerals come from, is out of them. The mineral is formed because of different temperatures, and granites, which have quartz, feldspar, mica, yeah,
I got fooled by Michael one day. I thought I found a whole mountain of gold.
Yeah. Well,
That's when I was first getting started.
They cool a lot quicker. And so all the minerals, they have a mineral thermometer, and they all fall out at different temperatures. And so the hot waters is holding all the minerals. And so when they lose their heat and temperature, that's when they become a mineral deposit. And so
that hot water's got to be extremely hot.
Oh yeah.
Well, and you said that. So like as far as the layers, you know, when you're talking about metals, the iron's first, and then it goes.
It usually the yes. There's mercury, antimony. Let's see, mercury, antimony. Thallium. There's quite a few minerals that fall out first. They're really or they don't fall out first. They fall out last. They fall out last. Your hot metals is copper. Let's see.
So if you find any of that, you find mercury or if you go down deeper, your chances of finding the other.
Yes, that's some of that's halos around ore bodies.
Okay.
They use that as a guide. As a guide.
And that's like Kennecott. They don't just pull out copper. They pull out
Kennecott
gold,
gets everything.
Yeah, but see, they're pretty hot. That's a pretty hot system where they're at. The gold and the silver halo it around it. They had lead and zinc and silver all the way around in them districts, around that district, and then the center of it's the copper. So that's a bullseye of the copper. And then they have molybdenum, copper, moly. They're the major things, and then they have gold also with it. Gold can be a real hot metal too. It can, or else after it cools off, the gold stays there. It can be a cold metal or a hot one. In Nevada, where all these gold mines are at the present time, Carlin and stuff like that, they're pretty cool. They're an awful cool system.
So they're spread out all over.
And they're microscopic, and they spread out all over in the host rock. So, but anyway, it's an interesting study, you guys. It's an interesting study.
Most you hear about gold in Utah is flour gold. Has there been nuggets found?
Sure.
Has there?
Sure. And they used to placer gold at Kennecott before they ever, down below it, before they ever opened it up as copper mines.
Really?
They have gold out to Joy. They have it out to Ibex, and they have gold at Amnesty Valley on the mine's going dead, guys.
Wait till you get my age, man. Well, I know what it's like to forget things.
Yeah. Anyway, on the House Range, it's the House Range, and it's the Notch Peak mountain up in Amnesty Valley. So there's quite a few. Down to Marysville, they found pretty good nuggets down in the Marysville area.
Are them all underground? Is there anything to the surface? I mean, if a guy had a detector and wanted to detect them areas, are they going to have any luck looking for nuggets, or it's all underground pretty deep?
There's been a lot of erosion. If you go where there's a lot of erosion, you got a chance to find nuggets.
That spot where he told me to go, I searched and searched, and when we found it, I just, where the wash had banked up against a cedar tree, and hell, we dug 6 inches, and after that, every pan had a little bit in it, and it wasn't flour; it was little chunks.
Little chunks.
Yep. And we never got to the bedrock,
Wow.
But I always thought if you went up there, and there's a big major wash that flows out to the north from there, and that's my goal this summer. I'm taking the metal detector and I'm gonna go up and down that sucker, see if I can find something that's washed down,
Yeah, they've had gold and in several places. Kennecott, of course, is the 6th largest producer in the United States, and they're not even a gold company.
Yeah.
So they produce millions of dollars worth of gold annually out of there.
Oh yeah, I've worked in their gold room and been there just as they poured them and got to hold their bars, 24-pound gold bars and 100-pound silver bars, and they get like 100 bars of silver to every 1 bar of gold. But yeah, they do.
That's crazy.
And what really surprised me, they sell every bit of their gold to Tiffany's. Tiffany's buys all their gold.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
We have a copper mine. I have a copper mine 50 miles west of here. And one day it will probably be a similar thing to Kennecott.
Really?
Yep.
Didn't you do a bunch of, what do you call it when they do sound into some kind of ground penetrating something you did on that, right?
Well, they've it wasn't me, but they've got an anomaly out there on it. I guess the USGS done it, I assume, but there is an anomaly. It's over 1 mile in diameter.
Wow, cool.
And we have one end of it. We have copper all over on it. So,
Really?
So it'll be someday. It'll be a big mine.
That Freeport Mac Moran, I've done work for them out at their mine in Morenci, and it's a copper mine, and it's now going to be the world's largest open pit mine. They're vastly outpacing Kennecott. So.
Well, there's copper. They use a lot of copper up in all the infrastructure. So copper is going to be a real main producer one day.
Yeah.
So, in fact, Freeport, I've done quite a bit of work with them, and they're looking for copper. That's what they're looking for. They're not worried about gold mines. They're not worried about molybdenum mines. They're worried about copper.
That's what they deal with is copper. So at least at the Morenci mine they did. So yeah, you need to get a hold of them on that if you haven't yet.
Well, I've had them on it.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. Cool.
And they've got some interest there, still. So.
Awesome.
And I'm trying to get Kennecott, but I've had a struggle getting them. They've been tied up pretty tight. So, but if they knew what it was out there, they'd be out there, I think.
Yeah.
We have another place, what we call the Thompson Knoll, this side of Baker, Nevada, 16 miles this side of Baker, Nevada. We have this last summer, they went in and drilled a hole. They were supposed to have enough money to drill 2 holes, 2 deep holes, and the people they had in there couldn't drill. It was just they're supposed to be a real big drilling company, and they just couldn't get the holes down. It was tough, but they did find copper in the intrusive, just exactly like the very same copper is in the intrusive at Kennecott, same stuff. So they're still seeking funds to go back and drill the other holes, but they've had Kennecott out on that, and they've done a lot of work on it.
Cool.
And so there's another one, just 16 miles this side of the state line out there, and it has the possibility of being they've done a lot of geophysics on it, and it's a big anomaly. It's bigger than the mile.
Wow.
So in diameter. So, and it's out in a place where you wouldn't know, it ain't seeable. Nobody's ever seen it. Or the mineral that came out of there was the first that anybody's ever seen
Wow.
that intrusive.
Cool.
So it's an interesting property. It's owned by, well, it's controlled by Inland Exploration is the company that actually owns or controls it. So anyway, there's numerous possibilities for
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. So I know here in Nephi, there's a story in I got it out of the library here in Nephi. Actually, another guy that I was working with when I was working on when they was building the power plant at IPP. I was working with him, and he's from Nephi. I can't think of his name. That was a long time ago. Anyways, he shared this story with me coming out of the history books here in Nephi, and it talked about how Johnston's army came into town, and some of the no, is that the story? No, it talked about, I'm getting my stories mixed up. It talked about how Johnston's army came in, and so the polygamists, the men, went up to this area they called Balgarth that they'd found up in and wherever it was, they could see the shores of Utah Lake, and they could look down into Nephi, and they could tell when Johnston's army was coming. So they had a sentinel up there, a guard kind of watching, and when he seen them coming, then they'd go down and get the polygamist men, and they'd go up there and stay there. And wherever it was, there was a spring, and there was some old ancient ruined buildings, stone rock ruined buildings up there. You know, you haven't heard anything or ran across anything like that, have you?
I've never ran across it, but I've heard about it. And one place where we was working on that uranium, there was a spring right there. And I never spent a lot of time looking. So it is possible that could be the one. But then there's N Hill right here that has a spring right below it. So on the N Hill itself. So it's
when he says the N Hill, he means, you know, they have the J Hill up here.
well, there's
Joab. N Hill was for Nephi.
Oh, they had another. Is the
and it's up higher, and it's up higher, and it's a hill, a sugar loaf sticking up in the air that you can see up into Sanpete County and back into Utah County.
Ah.
But this other one is a little farther to the north. It'd be about a mile to the north, and where we was doing all the work on the uranium. So there is a spring there too.
Pinpoint them for me so I can go up there and see if I can find if there was any old rock buildings or any structures or anything that looked like it could have been anything.
I think they'd be very easy to find because I assume they would have had them right square on the very tip top where you could see every direction. That's what I'd bet.
Yeah, just the interest to me is who made them old rock structures? Why was there old rock structures of buildings up there? They was all tore down, and I mean they wasn't in good condition, so they was old.
Yeah, they could have been. Well, it's possible. It could have been. It could have been the Indians. It could have been other people that was watching. You know,
possible. Not. Of course, you get down south. You know, the Pueblo Indians or whatever you call them. You know, where they did that. Man, them guys was masons. The way they laid.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, it's possible something like that could happen. But up here, you don't really have that. You have the teepees. You don't have the rock structures.
In the valley, right out here below this, right, just 2 miles out here. Why BYU went in and done an excavation on, I think it was Hawaii, it might have been the University of Utah, but anyway, they went in and done an excavation, and they had some of the neatest structures you've ever seen, right out in the
cool pit houses and things.
Yes,
Out there by the old dump.
well, no, it was right here, just below the railroad track, right?
Like somebody plowed it.
Right where that house is where that house, the first house of the, what is his name?
You talking Jackson?
Jackson, the first house was right in there, right by that.
So below the old dump out there. You know where I'm talking?
No.
You head out on that road.
Well, on that road, but it was just below the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
Right there. And there's still mounds down there that was never dug.
Oh, huh. Interesting.
They have mounds.
So they found some things in the mounds that they did dig?
Oh yeah, they went down, dug them, and reconstructed them.
Because
There was they had where people walked, where they'd burnt fires, where the building of the adobes. They had made it out of adobe, and
Because there's a story in Goshen where a guy a pioneer in the 1800s, late 1800s, was clearing his property of a mound, and he found some kind of a metal pot or something out of some type of metal, I believe. I can't remember. I have to look at that. And
copper,
might have been copper.
brass.
And then there was the ones there, the mounds there near Payson, where they found those giants in them, and also some pots that had wheat, some kind of a special wheat in it that and it's on record that wheat was turned into the agriculture. In fact, they started some crops with that wheat, and it turned out to be a great type of great wheat.
Something with some actual nutrients in it.
Yeah.
So what we have now.
I think it's what they use right now.
Huh.
I think it's what they used to use turkey red out here on the ridge, and I think they turned it into this new material finally.
So there was things in them mounds and things that went on with them mounds that just weren't your regular Indians, not the ones that that we know of around here that were just kind of lived in teepees and moved around and.
No.
Oh yeah. They've lived all up and down this creek. This is part of the creek come right through the back end of my place here.
Oh really?
Yeah, came right down through, went east of Jackson's, right in where the
Burstons, right?
yeah, it came and so they was built and lived right along and farmed right along the creek.
Still a lot of arrowheads if you go out on the north side of Mona Reservoir, the North Beach there's a lot of arrowheads out across there.
Huh.
Still.
Oh yeah, they went all the way down and right through where you're talking down the Goshen. I know that there's still a place there where when you plow the fields, you hit a rock foundation going across there at Goshen.
Oh really?
Was on my relations' farm too. It was the Steeles. It was a steel ranch down there.
They find anything interesting?
And that was where they supposedly found them pots.
Oh, so you've heard about them? It was copper pots.
That's what they said.
Tell me the story of it. How they?
Well,
I know about it.
I don't know. I don't know much about it. Jay Woodard, who lived there and owns property down there, where right there where it was at, was the one that actually told me. And well, I had heard it from my father too. My father told me that there was a place there that his uncle is actually what it was that owned the farm, and they'd come plowing around, and the plow would keep hitting that foundation all the way along.
And they found some copper pots?
But they found copper pots in that area. Mm-hmm.
Did they have any kind of markings on or anything? Or?
I think they're supposed to be in either the University of Utah or BYU or somewhere.
One of the universities got them.
Yeah.
Down in the
they're
basement
supposed to
where we
have
can't
them.
find them, right?
Well, they're supposed to have them.
Huh. We got to check into that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but there is no place that you go that there hasn't been an Indian.
Yeah. I agree
can
with
tell you
that.
that. No place.
I agree with that.
There was lots of Indians around at one time. They're out in Tule Valley. They're out in everywhere I've gone. I've found evidence of them.
Huh?
Found arrowheads. Found the pottery. Found stuff everywhere.
Huh?
Well, up Birch Creek where he's telling us earlier where he found, the cave with that snake petroglyph.
Yeah.
I was up there metal detecting, and you go up against cliff ledges and stuff like that. Anyway, I was up there and I looked up, and there was petroglyphs just on the overhang, you know.
Really?
And they were really eroded that you kind of see just these red squiggly looking marks, you know.
Yeah.
But they were definitely there, you know, and
Cool.
I never would have thought I'd see that stuff on Nepo.
Wow, cool.
But I found them petroglyphs out west in different places, and they're, you know, they're everywhere. If there was water. Now
Yeah,
if there was water.
Yeah.
Anywhere there was water, there was Indians.
Yeah.
That's kind of like that, what is that, Painter Springs?
Yeah.
Out there by Cherry Creek, on your way to Cherry Creek?
Oh no.
What's that called? The spring right there, they used to have a sheep camp there back in the day. There's a big outcrop of sandstone. There's petroglyphs right by there.
I'm not 100% sure where you mean, but I've been all through that area. I mean, you know, but I really don't hunt for petroglyphs.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I knew a guy.
But if I walked up to a rock and was going to bust it up, and I would have noticed it, you know. But
Well, I knew a guy that metal detected there, and like you said, they're around water. Well, if you see any kind of a spring, that's, you know, if you're looking for metal detecting, that's always been a place I look. Because I actually heard a story when I first got started of a guy out there metal detecting along, and he still has it, this old glass jar, and it's got a bunch of old coins in it, and they're like, I think he was saying they were back from the Roman days or something, you know.
Really?
And a couple Asian coins. But I guess when they had those sheep camps, they'd, you know, a lot of the Asians and stuff would come out and they'd shear the sheep, bring them in, you know, and somebody stashed it up there in that sandstone, and
Cool.
he's the guy that found it, you know.
Cool.
well, there's a million stories. It's just tough to recall them.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate, Bob, you sharing what you have shared with us. And, man, Jesse, thank you for inviting me to come down with you to talk with him.
We had to get him documented, for sure. This guy's a wealth of knowledge.
I can tell that, man. We ain't even scratched the surface.
No.
Just going off of recollection at the moment, huh?
Yeah.
It's been fun. It's been a fun life, great life. I don't know who it was that said it, but they said if you enjoy your job and you enjoy what you do, you never worked a day in your life. And so I really haven't had to work a day of my life.
Awesome. Awesome, Bob. That's awesome.
And that's why we go out when we can, right?
Yeah, you know,
Enjoy it a little bit.
there's an important thing I think to document. I think is number one, everything's made of something. Everything's made of something. You either have to mine it or you have to grow it.
That's right.
Everything comes from the earth.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And that don't mean you can go downtown and buy it. That means it has to be manufactured from our earth. And every great nation is made great because of its natural resources and its ability to utilize them.